decimals. Okay, fine. Here we go. Find the total monthly cost of owning and operating a certain automobile given the expenses below. And I'll let you catch up. Find a total monthly cost of owning and operating a certain automobile given the expenses below. We all can relate to this, can't we? Oh my gosh, our cars cost us too much money. All right, so monthly car payment. This one's like really high. I don't think I've ever spent this much for a car. $563.52. Monthly car insurance. $52.68. I think I spend more than that. Okay, now this is really old problem, so this is probably not going to be right. Average bill for gas per month. 127. Whoops, that looks bad. $127.50. All right, we got to find our monthly payment, total monthly cost of owning and operating a car. So just like we would when we're trying to do our own budgets and stuff, we're going to add up all the expenses of owning a car and see how much we are actually spending each month for our car. You guys ever do this? You'd probably be surprised if you really did. All right, so we're going to add them up, and remember it's decimals, so we line up all the decimal places. So let's add them up. Okay, so we got 10. We got 5, 6, and 6 is 12, plus 5 is 17. Decimal place goes here. And remember, it's money too. We talked about making sure that if you're rounding, you have to round something and it's money, you always do cents, but we're already rounded to cents. Okay, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 is 13. 6, 7, and 8, 9, and 5 is 14. 5, 6, 7. I got 743.70. And just like any word problem, once you're done, you have to finish a word problem with words. Okay. The average monthly cost, I guess I shouldn't say average. We already know what it is, sorry. The monthly cost of the car is $743.50. That's a lot of money. I just want to show you one real life problem that we can all relate to. Something that uses decimals. Money's always decimals, so we use decimals all the time. All right, so the 5.2 was adding and subtracting decimals. We're going to go into 5.3, which is multiplying decimals, and then 5.4, which is dividing decimals, which have very different ways to deal with a decimal. So when you add and subtract, you line up your decimals, but when you multiply and divide, you don't line up your decimals. So let's look at 5.3.
Shouldn't that be a 7 instead of a 5?
Where?
743 with the 5-0. Shh.
Oh, yeah. I just wrote it down wrong. Yeah. Told you, it's that COVID thing. It's still not going away. It's driving me insane. Okay, 4-3, multiplying decimals. Hey, along with this, we're gonna add circumference of a circle. So geometry wise, we've done area, we've done perimeter, and now we're gonna start looking at circles. We're gonna look at a circumference of a circle. And that's because you're dealing with pi, and pi is a decimal. So that's why they have it in this particular section. And we're gonna go right to multiplying. So when you multiply, we do not line up the decimals. And I'll show you what we do with them in case you forgot. Okay. I don't want P, I want an M. Whoops. M for multiply. Okay. Multiply. 1. Okay, most of the time, they're not going to line it up for you. You have to line it up yourself. So they'll give you something like this, where you have to figure out where to put everything. But always, unless you're really, really, really good, I would always multiply vertically. Okay, so we're going to do 23.5 times 8.2. Now, the decimals line up only for one reason. That's because you have to line everything up to the right. And just because I line it up to the right, the decimals seem to line up, but the decimals don't have to line up. And I can show you that in the next problem, that they won't line up. But this happens to line up because the way the problem is. So you always line up all your numbers to the right side. You want them all line up to the right. Decimal does not have to line up. All right, and then we're just gonna pretend those decimals aren't there, and we're gonna multiply. So, and we'll do with decimals at the end. 5 times 2 is 10. 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1 is 7. 2 times 2 is 4. So that's multiplying the 2 through. And then we're going to put our 0, of course, because we're in the 10th spot now. 8 times 5 is 40. Carry the 4. 8 times 3 is 24. 25 to 6 or 7, 28. And then 8 times 2 is 16. And then we're going to add down 0, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 7, and 1. Now, this is when you deal with the decimals, when you're finished multiplying. So what you do is you count out how many decimal places you have. So you're going to count decimal places. And what I mean by that is you look at each of them. This one has 1 decimal place because it's over only 1 from the right. This one has 1 decimal place because it's over 1 from the right. So that means on the bottom, we start my decimal place there. I have to move it 2 over. I have 2 decimal places. I have 2 decimal places. So 1, 2, my answer's here. I can erase it so you don't see it anymore. That's a really big decimal place. So let me like make it not so huge. There you go. So it'd be 172.7. Whew.
I got 1880.0 instead of 168. Did I do my math wrong or?
No, it's probably me because I'm like really not feeling great today. So hold on. Yeah. Yeah, it's an 8. Sorry. How about that? 192.7. Is that what you got?
Yes, that's what I got.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Yeah, fix me. Okay, decimal places, because there were 2 decimal places in total between the 2, we move it over 2 from the right. All right, let's see if I can do this one right. Okay, so 0.0641 times 27. And now you're going to see that like we don't have any decimal places in 27. So 0.0641 times 27. See how they run up to the right? You run it up to the right. Okay, 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 4 is 28. 7 times 6 is 42, 43, 44. Carry to 4. 7 times 0 is 0, and 4 comes down. Now we're going to a 10 spot, so I'm going to add a 0. 2 times 1 is 2. 4 times 2 is 8. 6 times 2 is 12. Carry the 1, and then I bring the 1 down. Did I do it wrong again? 8, 12, no. Sorry. I did do it wrong, did I? Hold on a second. 2, 8, 12, 1. Yeah, I got it. Okay, so 7, 8, 9, 10. 8, 9, and 4 is 13. 4, 5, 6, 7, and then bring down the 1. Now, how many decimal places do I have? I have 4. There's 4 decimal places here. I have 0 decimal places here. That means I go to the end and I got to move it over 4 decimal places. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Answer. So it is just like we normally do with multiplying. It's just dealing with the decimals at the end. All right, let's look at some with like negative numbers. So you can also write multiplying like this with parentheses. It still means multiplying. Okay, so we're gonna line it up. 7.3 times negative 0.9. Now don't get lost in the fact that you think that's minus. So make sure you put a multiply sign, just to remind you that it's not a minus, it's a negative.
On the second problem that you did, I'm sorry, I got 4987 instead of 4487. Am I doing my math wrong?
7 times 4 is 28. 7 is 42, 33, 44. I got 44.
Okay,
Yeah, I
I
got-
just did my math wrong.
Yeah, I get 44. It's all right. Rather you check me. Okay, so here we go. 9 times 3 is 27. 9 times 7 is 63. 64 is 65. I could add a 0, but I really don't need a 0 because if I add a 0, I'm just multiplying 0, right? So it's going to be 0 anyway. So that's pretty much my answer, except I'm going to bring this negative down so I don't forget it. And I can do my decimal places. So this is 1 decimal place and this is 1 decimal place. That means I'm going to move it over 2 decimal places. So I start here at the end and I go 1, 2, and I have my 2 decimal places. So there's my decimal place. And I'm going to erase this so it's not our way. And I know it goes right here. Negative 6.57. It's not a bad idea that when you have negatives to just put on the bottom what the answer is, whether it's positive or negative at the beginning, so you don't forget it. It's really easy to get all into this problem and then you forget to do your signs. All right, negative 42.3 times negative 12.6. Now, for this particular one, I know a negative times a negative is a positive, right? So I'm not even gonna put the negatives. 42.3, because I know the answer is positive. So don't write the negatives if you don't have to. Then I won't forget my negatives because they're gone, because the negative times negative is a positive. And now we can multiply this the same way. So 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times 2 is 12 plus 1 is 13. 6 times 4 is 21 plus 1 is 25. Now I'm gonna put a 0 for the tens place. 2 times, let me erase these because I need to get them out of the way. Okay, 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 2 is 8. Now I'm doing my other place, my hundredths place, so I have to do 2 zeros. 1 times 3 is 3, 1 times 2 is 2, 1 times 4 is 4. And now we're going to add them all down. I have 8, 6 and 3 is 9, 5 and 4 is 9, 10, 11, 12. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 4 and 1 is 5. And then I have 2 decimal places I have to move. So I know my answer is going to be here. And that's my answer, 532.98. So if you can think of it just like multiplying, you just have to deal with the decimal at the end. Okay, let's look at one more, then I'll see if you have any questions. 5. 30.26 times 2.89. Now, direction says, it's a different directions, estimate, answer, and then multiply. So you have one other thing you have to do first. You have to estimate it first. They don't tell you how to estimate it, but when you have decimals, I think we talked about this before, you're sort of kind of estimate it to the nearest whole number. So my estimate, I'm gonna put it over here. So 30.26, that would be 30. And 2.89, that's closer to 3. So I'll make it 3. So my estimate is going to be 90. That's my estimate. And now we're actually going to multiply. So 30.26 times 2.89. And then let's multiply. And if we're not close to 90, we did something wrong, right? 9 times 6 is 54. 9 times 2 is 18, plus 5 is 23. 9 times 0 is 0, plus 2 is 2, and 9 times 3 is 27. That was multiplying our 9. And now we're going to do 10th spot, so we're going to add a 0, and we're going to multiply to 8. I'm going to erase my numbers on top. 8 times 6 is 48. 8 times 2 is 16, plus 4 is 20. 8 times 0 is 0, plus 2 is 2. And 8 times 3 is 24. Now we're going to do our 100 spot, so I have to add 2 zeros. And I'm also going to erase these. And here we go. 6 times 2 is 12. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 2 times 0 is 0. And 3 times 2 is 6. All right, so let's add down. 4, 0, 0 is 4. 8 times 3 is 11. 2 plus 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5. 7 plus 2 is 9, plus 5 is 14. 2 plus 1 is 3, plus 4 is 7. And then 6 plus 2 is 8. Now, ask yourself, how many decimal places I have to move? I see 4. You see 4? I see 4. So we're going to go over from here. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's my decimal place. Once I do that, I can get rid of this. And I know my answer is 87.4514. Now, my estimate was 90. So I'm pretty happy with that number because we had to round this number rounded down a little bit and this number rounded up a little bit. So it makes sense. It was like a little bit, it's close to 90, but it's not 90. All right, now I get to ask anybody have any questions so far. I want to do one more estimate problem and then we're going to look at something else with multiplying. Okay, one more estimate problem just to try to practice one more. Which one do I want to do? We're going to do, let's do the long one. Okay, 1.234 times 10.55. So that's a 4-digit times a 4-digit. That's a little long, so let's do that one. Same directions though. So first, we want to estimate our answer. Now, 1.234, that's still like 1. And then 10.55, that's going to be really close to, that's going to round to 11. So my estimate is 11. Now, this particular one, we dropped 0.234 rounding and we rounded up a little bit in 10. So it's not going to be 11, but it's going to be close. Okay, so 1.234 times 10.55. Okay, 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 2 is 17. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 plus 1 is 6. So that's what I have for multiplying the first 5. Now we're going to go to tenths, so I'm going to add a 0. And I'm going to do 5 again, but I'm just going to make sure we do it right. I'm going to erase that. Okay, so 5 times 4 is 20. Same numbers we just got, right? 5 times 3 is 15, plus 2 is 17. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11. And 5 times 1 plus 1 is 6. So it makes sense. We got exactly what we did, just with an extra 0. So now we add a 0 for the hundredths place. But 0 times everything is 0. So I could either do this. We'll just leave it like that. We'll do it like that. Let's make it all zeros. It's just all zeros. Okay, then we're going to do our thousands place. So I need 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. No, 3 zeros, sorry. 3 zeros. We have 1, 2, 3, 3 zeros, sorry. 3 zeros. And now we're going to multiply our 1. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 2 is 2. And 1 times 1 is 1. A lot of zeros in this one. Okay, add down. We have 0. We have 7. We have 8. 6 plus 1 is 7 plus 4 is 11. 6 plus 1 is 9. Plus 9, 10, 11, 12. 6, 7, 8, no. 6, 7, 9, 10. Ooh. Okay, 2 plus 1 is 3, and then 1. Now, how many decimal places we got? Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3 on top, and we have 2 on the bottom. So we have to move 5 decimal places, 5. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I already know it's here. And let me erase this, doesn't get in our way. And look, it's not 13, but it's really close to 13, 13.01870.
Close enough. I mean, you estimated
Yeah.
first and then you did problem.
Yep, yep. Especially with a small number, it's still pretty close. The way we had to round it.
So how did you determine where the decimal point went at the end?
You count how many decimal places in both of them. So this is 1 decimal place, 2, 3 decimal places, and I have 1 decimal place and 2 decimal places. So together I have 5 decimal places. So then you go to the back and you actually go back 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's how we knew where it was right there. So you have to go to both problems, both numbers that you're multiplying, and add up how many decimal places that were total. And that's how many total you move. Does that answer that question all right?
Yes, thank you.
Uh-huh. Any other questions before I move on? I'm gonna add a new page. Okay, so we're still multiplying. So multiplying decimals by powers of 10. Like 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, et cetera, et cetera. Now, we're not going to really multiply them. We're going to talk about how to put the answer because you don't have to multiply them when it's power of 10. Now, if you forget, of course, you can multiply it out by 10 and 100 and 1,000, but you really don't have to because there's a way to deal with it with decimals. All right, so for example, I'm going to say multiply. All right, the first one, 7.68 times 10. Well, when you multiply by 10, you're making the number bigger, right? So this is how I do it. How many zeros are there? 1. So I know the number has to be bigger. So I'm going to move the decimal place 1 to make it bigger. So my answer is going to be 76.8. So I look at how many zeros there are. That's how many I move my decimal place. Because it has to be bigger, I have to move it to the right. And I get 76.8. Let's look at another one. 203.004 times 100. So I'm multiplying by 100. That's a big number. It means the number has to get bigger. I look at how many zeros I have. I have 2. If I want to make this number bigger, I got to move the decimal place to the right, and I'm going to move it to the right too. So 1, 2. So my answer, whoops, that wasn't very good. What happened there? 1, 2. So my answer is going to be 20300.4. 20,300.4. 3. Negative 2.23, I have in parentheses, times 1,000. All right, so I know it's a negative 2.23. I'm multiplying by 1,000. That means it has to be a bigger number, which actually in this way, in this particular case, it's actually a smaller number because it's negative. But we know we're going to make it, move it to the right. How many decimal places? I'm going to move it to the right 3 decimal places. Now I'm going to do this down here because I really don't have an extra decimal place to move. So negative 2.23. So if I move it 3 to the right, 1, 2, I have to add a 0 and a decimal is going to be there. So my answer is going to be negative 2,230. So remember, we had to add that 0 because we needed 3 decimal places. And then one more, I got 46.892 times 100. So I have 2 zeros. So I got to take my decimal place it and move it 2 places to the right. It's going to be a bigger number. So 4689.2, 4,689.2. So that's multiplying by powers of 10 that are bigger, right? So what do we do when we multiply by decimals that are smaller? So multiplying decimals by small powers of 10. And what I mean is like 0.1, 0.01, etc. Small powers of 10. For example, 42.1 times 0.1. And again, if you forget this, the shortcut, the way I'm trying to show you how to do it, you can always line it up and multiply, actually multiply it out, you'll get the answer. But we are making the number smaller, not bigger. So in order to make it smaller, we're going to instead of move to the right, we're going to move it to the left to make it smaller. Now, how many decimal places did I have? I have 1. So I'm going to take my decimal place up here and I'm going to move it 1 to the left because 42 is going to become 4. It's got to become smaller. So 4.21. So when you multiply by big powers of 10, you're making a number bigger. Not so much a negative, but you're making a number look bigger. So you're going to the right. When you multiply by a small power of 10, that's less than 1, you're making it smaller and you go to the left. Okay, 2. 76,805 times 0.001. It's 1/1000. So I had 3 decimal places. So I'm going to take my decimal place. If there isn't decimals at the end, and I'm going to move it 3 decimal places to the left. 1, 2, 3. So 76,000 is now going to become 76.805 because I made it smaller by 3 decimal places. Negative 9.2 times negative 0. Can't forget the negatives, right? Whoops. 0.01. Number 1, do the negative first. A negative times a negative is a positive. So I don't even need the negatives. If you want, which I do, is I just make these positive to remind me I don't have any negatives left. Now I'm going down here, my 9.2, because we need to add a 0. I need more room. Okay, so we have 2 decimal places. So I got to move this 2 decimal places. So I make it to the left, 1, 2, which means I have to add a 0 to the front. So my answer is going to be 0.092, or you could just put 0.092. They're the same answer. Okay, I want to do one more. 4. 123.56 times 0.0001. Making this number much smaller by 4 decimal places. So when I'm going to put it down here too, so I need more room. I'm going to go back 4 decimal places. 1, 2, 3, 4. That means I have to add a 0 with my decimal place. So my answer is going to be 0.012356, or you could just put 0.012356, one or the other. Okay, any questions on multiplying by big or small powers of 10? Just keep in mind that big means the number has to get bigger. Except for negative goes backwards, smaller, but yeah, I think you know what I mean. The number looks bigger, and then it's smaller, the small powers of 10, you have to make that number smaller. Okay. All right, circumference of a circle. This comes up in this section because you're dealing with pi, and pi is a decimal. All right, don't laugh at my circle because I can't draw, but okay, that's not too bad till the end. I don't like it. Hold on.
No, that was a good circle.
Okay, this is my lopsided circle. Okay. We already talked about perimeter of like a square or a rectangle, right? Perimeter is when we add all the sides, add all sides. So a circle, we can't add sides because there are no sides. So that's called a circumference. So the circumference is equal to, not equal to, it's the same as, not equal to, it's the same as finding the circle's quote perimeter. We don't call it perimeter because it's not sides. So when you see the circumference of a circle, you're talking about how round the outside of that circle is. What does that outside of that circle measure? So it's another name, I think of as perimeter. It's the perimeter of the circle. It's the outside of the circle. How long is the outside of the circle? That's what we mean by circumference. All right, two things though in a circle that we need to talk about. We have this line that goes through the circle, through the center. That's called your diameter. That's the line that goes through the whole center of the circle and goes through the center. And then half a diameter is called a radius. Half the diameter is called the radius. Radius, diameter. So we would say that this is the radius. I can't write that small. Let's see. Radius. And that is also a radius. So there's a diameter is all the way through and a radius becomes half of it. So there's two of them. So let's try this again. That's the radius of a circle. Now, a circle has a radius all the way through. I can draw a radius wherever I want. As long as I'm in the center, I'm drawing a radius. All these are called a radius. I can keep on going. So a circle has unlimited or infinite radius that you can draw. As long as you're in the center, going to the end is a radius. What do I mention all that? Because we have to talk about how to find the circumference of a circle. So how do I find circumference, which means the outside of a circle? So circumference is equal to 2 pi r or pi d, where r is equal radius and d is equal diameter. Now, in a lot of problems, since pi is an irrational number, I don't know if you know a lot about pi, but it goes on forever and never repeats. It's 3.14 and it goes on forever, ever, right? So since it's an irrational number, a lot of times in math, they'll ask you to estimate pi by using 3.14, which is what we're going to do for these problems. So it's not going to be an exact answer because we're not using pi, but we're using approximation of pi, 3.14. Okay, so all that's again is ready for our problems, what we're going to look at. All right, so these are all the problems we're going to do. I'll keep this right here so you can see it. That's why I wrote it over there so I can keep it up there. That's our circumference. Now we can use either or 2 pi r or pi d. It really depends on what they give you. But honestly, You can pick one and do one. It just depends on what you want, what you like. I never use, personally, I never use pi d ever. I always use 2 pi r, but that's just a personal thing. Pi d is fine. Like the first one, watch what here's one that that is probably better to use pi d. So one, actually, let me do directions. Find the circumference of each circle given. So each one's going to give you a different given one. Okay, I'm wrong. I read the wrong one. Or I wrote down the wrong one. Radius 11 meters. So if you give me the radius, I'm going to use 2 pi r. So circumference equals 2 pi r. Now, we're going to do it two ways. I want the exact answer. Say we're going to do it two ways. Now, it depends on what they ask you on your on the homework, which way to answer it. So you have to look for two words. I want the exact answer, exact value, and I want the approximate value. We're going to do both for all of them, so we can practice both. But exact value, we don't use 3.14. We actually use pi. We keep pi in the answer. For approximate value, we're going to use 3.14. So it depends on what they give you, what they ask you for. Again, we're going to do both so that we practice both, so that whatever they give you, you know what to do. Okay, so circumference is equal to pi r. I'm just going to put exact here and approximate here because we're going to do both. So exact, c is equal to 2 pi, my r is 11. Now exact, I keep r just the way it is. So c is equal 22 pi meters. That's what it means exact. I just leave pi in my answer. So all I'm going to do is multiply my numbers and leave pi. That's an exact answer. Approximate answer, they even might say approximate the answer by using pi equals 3.14. They might even tell you something like that, but that just means instead of using pi, we're going to use 3.14. 2 times 3.14 times 11. That would be our approximate answer. All right, so we got to multiply this. I suggest multiplying the two whole numbers first. So it'd be 22 times 3.14, and then we're going to multiply vertically. 3.14 times 22. So it's just like a normal problem with decimals, we're just multiplying. I also find, see how I put 3.14 on top? It's longer. I also find if you put the longer number on top, it's sort of better on your eyes when you look at it. Does that make sense? I don't know. All right, so here we go. 4 times 2 is 8. 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 2 is 6. A 0 for my tenths. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 2 is 6. I'm going to add down, and then I got to move my decimal place. So 8, 10, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 6. And then I have 2 decimal places right here. So I'm going to move over 2 decimal places. And my answer is going to be C is equal to 69.08 meters. Now, that's the approximate, but they asked for approximate. So that's our approximate answer. Hey, before I do a next one, does that all make sense to you? what approximate versus exact is, what to use when. As you can tell, when they ask you for exact answer, it's way easier because you just leave pi. All right, 2. So find the circumference of a circle given diameter of 12.2 inches. Now this one, I might use pi d since they gave me a diameter. Or you could cut it in half to make 6.1 and use 2 pi r. It doesn't matter, either or. Okay, so exact and estimate. Or no, approximate, sorry, approximate. Exact. So circumference is equal to pi times 12.2. Now, pi always goes after your number. So when I write my answer, it's going to be 12.2 pi, n is inches. Since you're measuring the outside of the circle, you're not doing area or you're not multiplying different dimensions. You're just doing the perimeter. So it's just the exact same unit. It's not a square or anything like that. All right, approximate. C equals 3.14 times 12.2. So now we're going to multiply them. 3.14 times 12.2. 4 times 2 is 8. 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 2 is 6. Add a 0. 4 times 2 is 8. 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 2 is 6. Add another 0, because now we're doing the 1. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 1 is 1. 3 times 1 is 3. Add down 8, 8, 9, 10, 6, 7, 8, 9, plus 4 is 13, 6, 7, 8, and bring the 3 down. Now, how many decimal places do I have to move over to decimal? I have 2 decimal places on top and 1 on the bottom, so that'd be 3. Whoops. Go back. Okay, 3. So I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3. So I know my answer is going to be circumference is 38.308 inches. And that would be our approximate answer. And that is our end of multiplying. Questions? The circumference, you just have to know the formula. C equals 2 pi r. And then if they want exact, you just leave the pi in the answer. And then if they don't want, they tell you to use 3.14, you just put the Tuesdays, you put 3.14 for pi, and you put whatever the radius or diameter is, or you use diameter equation, which is pi d, and then you multiply it like we did before. So just filling in what is given to you and then multiplying it out and moving a decimal place. All right.
I like how you get the exact and the approximate, because like you said, when we get to the homework, ain't no telling if it wants the approximate answer or the exact answer.
Exactly. That's why I want to do both, because they could ask either of them and I want you to know which one it means. So when it says exact answer, the pi just stays. If it says approximate, or if they say and use 3.14, that's what you're going to do. That would be your approximate answer. That's exactly what I want to do both, because that can be confusing too. Exact just means keep high. Just leave it in your answer. Okay, so now we're gonna look at dividing. We're not gonna finish it, so we'll finish it next time. but we can just get it started. Which is good because I think dividing is the trickiest one of all of them between adding, subtracting, multiplying. I think dividing is a little bit more tricky because we're actually dealing with decimals and we're doing long division. So it's a little tricky, but let's just go right to it and I'll show you a problem. Okay, so we're gonna do 370.4 divided by 8. That's actually not that bad.
I
Okay,
was
so
actually about to say something.
what's that?
I was actually about to say something. Like you said, division might be the hardest, but like, what if you have like a single digit and you divide that by like a
Yeah, that's not that hard, but we're gonna start with this anyway. The next ones are gonna be all decimals, but it's a good thing to review dividing, right? Okay, so dividing. How many 8s are in 3? 0. How many 8s are in 36? 8 times 4 is 36. I subtract, I have 1 left. I bring down to 10. Sorry, hold on a second.
Isn't 8 times 4 32?
Yeah, I gotta fix that. Yes. Thank you. I just saw that too as I'm trying to choke. 50. Okay. How many 8s are in 50? 8 times 6 is 48. 2, bring down to 4. How many 8s are 24? That's 3. 24, 0. And now we're just going to bring a decimal point up. That one's the easier one. So our answer is 46.3. I actually want to go with 1 decimals on both sides. Okay. Here's the one I want to do. Okay, we're going to divide 64.85 divided by 1.5. This is where it gets a little tricky. All right, 64.85 divided by 1.5. All right, we cannot divide if we have decimals here. We have to fix it. How do we fix it? We fix it by moving a decimal place. So I'm going to move the decimal place over here to make 15, which means I got to move the decimal place over here and put it after the 8. Now I'm allowed to divide. Now it looks like the first problem, right? We're just like a whole number that we're dividing by. So you are not allowed to leave decimal places when you're dividing on the outside. You got to fix it. So whatever I move, how many I move the decimal place to make it a whole number, I have to move the decimal place inside the same amount. And now I can divide, which I'm over here, so I don't need enough room. 648.5 divided by 15. Okay, we can't divide 15 and 6, but I can divide 15 into 64, which would be, I think, 5, 10. 4 is 60. With 4 left, bring down to 8. How many 15s are on 48? Well, I know 45 is 3 of them. 45, 3, bring down to 5. 15, okay, 2 of them is 30. With 50 left. And then 15, 30, that's going to be 45 again, which is 3. Oh. And that's going to be 50. And I think we're going to have 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, right? So 45, and that's going to be, again, we're going to put another 3 as 45. See what's going to happen? It's going to keep going 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. How do you write an answer like that? we put like a line, right? So equals, okay, so the decimal place is after, and I did this, did I do this wrong? I did this wrong, hold on. The decimal place has to line up. It's 43.233 repeating, but we write it as 43.23 repeating. The 3 is a repeating, just the 3. Now, again, it depends on the directions. I could have said, or could say round to the nearest hundredth or round to the nearest tenth. So you really have to look at the directions too. I just did the exact answer and kept going till it's 33333. But you want to look at the directions too. Directions will tell you how to do your answer. All right, let's look at another one.
Ooh, that was just a repeating one.
Yeah, that was a repeating one. I'm glad. That's an interesting one to do. Okay, so now let's do 23.4 divided by 0.57. They both have decimal places, right? Okay, so we have 23.4 divided by 0.57. I cannot have any decimals that I'm dividing by. So I have to fix it. How do I fix it? Is I move it till it's not a decimal. So I move it 1, 2 decimal places, which will make 57. I don't need the 0 anymore. And that means I got to move 2 decimal places on the inside, 1, 2, which means my decimal place is now here and I have an extra 0, which means I'm now dividing by 2,340. Okay, my biggest concern is, do you see how I go from here to here? Because once you know that, it's just dividing, it's just getting there. But this is my biggest concern, is knowing that, okay, I move it 2 places to the right. Don't know what that would just happen. That I also have to also move it 2 places to the right on the inside number. And wherever that decimal falls, is falls, and that write the answer. And then it's just dividing from here. I'm not going to finish it. I just want to practice a few. Say I have 6.234. We're not going to divide them. We're just going to fix them. Quote, we're going to fix them. I want to do this just real quick. We're just going to fix them. Then we'll go back to dividing when I come back. So I don't know if everybody was here, but I'm leaving a little early. I have an appointment that I have to get to. So I'm leaving in about like now, but we're going to practice these a few minutes, and then we're going to stop early, and then I'll finish this. We're halfway through it anyway, but I'll spend more time on this next time, and we'll do the last section, and then we'll be all done. Test is next Tuesday. Okay. Let's say I'm dividing by 112.42.6, right? We're just fixing it. We're not dividing it. I have to move this 3 decimal places, which means I have, well, actually, stop for a second. I rewrite it again. And that means I have to move this 3 decimal places, 1, 2, 3, which means I have to add 2 zeros. So what I'm really dividing by is 12,426,00, which is 1,242,600. And then I would divide it. Let's fix this one. 30.42 divided by, let's say we do 150. Or no, let's even do something better. Let's do 15.3. Let's do that. I like that. All right, so I have to go on the outside. I have to move it 2 decimal places, which means I got to move this one 2 decimal places, but let me write down the new number. 1, 2, 15, 30. And that would be my new problem.